Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be tackling a challenge that a lot of marina owners and managers face:
Yeah,
choosing the right software for their service and refinishing department.
for sure. That's a big one.
It's a big decision,
Yeah,
and we're here to help you kind of navigate those waters.
absolutely. The right software can really, it can streamline your operations, boost your team's efficiency, and, at the end of the day, it's going to improve your bottom line.
Right.
And we've got them fantastic sources here that break down two popular options, Prolifik HMS and Quickbooks Time.
Okay, so let's imagine you're a marina manager,
Okay.
and you're looking for a system that can help you keep track of work orders, manage your technicians, and make sure your customers are happy.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin with all this?
Well, I think one of the first things you got to think about is how your team works.
Okay.
Marina service often means your technicians are out on the docks, they're in the yard, sometimes even on the water.
Right.
So mobile accessibility is a huge deal.
Yeah, you're right. It's 2025.
That's right.
We're all glued to our phones.
Pretty much.
So how do these systems stack up when it comes to,
Yeah.
keeping your techs connected out in the field?
Well, and that's where we see a clear difference in approach.
Okay.
Prolifik HMS is primarily web-based.
Okay.
So you can access it on a mobile browser,
Gotcha.
but there's no dedicated app.
That could be a little clunky for a technician who's,
Mhm.
trying to update a work order with their, you know,
Yeah.
greasy hands juggling tools.
Exactly, especially if the Wi-Fi signal is, a little spotty out on those docks.
Right.
QuickBooks Time, on the other hand, this thing was built for mobility.
Okay.
It's got user-friendly apps for iOS and Android. It's designed for real-time updates. And get this, it even works offline
Really?
and syncs later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay, that's pretty slick.
it is.
So a tech could, clock in and out, switch between tasks, even add notes.
Yep.
From anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
even without internet access.
Even without it.
That's kind of a game changer.
It is.
But I'm curious, if a system like Prolifik HMS doesn't have a dedicated app, how does a manager get a real-time view
Right.
of what's happening?
So with Prolifik, you're relying on a more centralized approach.
Okay.
They have a system for managing work orders where you can update statuses, you can add notes.
Oh.
Think of it like a digital whiteboard that everyone can see
Right.
and update.
I can see the appeal of that for a manager, but it kind of hinges on everyone diligently keeping things up to date.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
If your team's not great about inputting information right away,
Right?
you're stuck with a little bit of a lag.
Okay.
It's like waiting for the tide to come in before you can get a clear picture of the shoreline.
I like that. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does QuickBooks Time handle this real-time tracking challenge?
QuickBooks Time takes a different tack. Think of it as having a live feed
Okay.
of your entire operation. So you've got a dashboard that shows you who's working on what.
Uh-huh.
And if you enable GPS tracking,
Yeah.
you can see where your technicians are on the property.
Hold on. So I can literally see, little dots moving around on a map
You got it.
representing my techs as they move around the marina.
Yeah.
That's some serious Big Brother stuff.
It can be a bit granular, yes.
Yeah.
But it also provides valuable insights. So, for example, if a customer calls asking for an update, you can see exactly who's working on their boat
Oh, okay.
and where they are.
Gotcha.
And technicians can add notes to their time entries, to provide context for what they're doing.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here.
Yeah.
It's not just about, tracking hours. It's about understanding the flow
The flow.
of work throughout the day.
Absolutely.
But I'm wondering, doesn't QuickBooks Time's focus on time tracking mean it might miss that big picture
Yeah.
view of a work order that you get with a system like Prolifik?
That's a great question. And you're right, there are trade-offs. While QuickBooks Time excels at tracking time,
Yeah.
it doesn't have that same built-in holistic view of a work order like you'd find in Prolifik.
Okay.
It's not going to show you things like waiting for parts or completed in the same way.
So it's like having a high-powered microscope to examine, the individual tasks,
Yeah.
but maybe missing the wide-angle lens to see the entire project.
Perfect
I
analogy.
like it.
Now, let's shift gears and talk about scheduling.
Yeah.
In a marina environment, things are always changing.
Yeah.
A boat might arrive with an unexpected issue, or you might have to, suddenly prioritize a job.
Right.
So how do Prolifik and QuickBooks Time handle those on-the-fly adjustments?
Yeah, you need a system that can, adapt as quickly as the wind changes.
I like that. Prolifik does allow for some schedule adjustments,
Okay.
but it's a bit more manual.
Okay.
You can drag and drop work orders, but it might not be as smooth
Right.
or visually intuitive as some other systems. The plus side is it is tightly integrated with work orders and customer records.
So if a job gets delayed,
Right.
that information is automatically linked to the work order, and it's reflected in the customer's function.
Exactly.
Okay, pretty cool.
However, Prolifik doesn't automatically notify technicians about those changes.
Right.
So you're relying on the manager to communicate those updates, which could lead to, some confusion or delays if not handled carefully.
Yeah, that's a potential bottleneck for sure.
It is.
So QuickBooks Time, it sounds like, might be a bit more agile in this area.
Indeed, QuickBooks Time is designed for flexibility.
Okay.
It has a drag-and-drop interface where you can rearrange shifts, you can rearrange assignments
Okay.
with ease, and those changes are instantly pushed out to the technicians' phones.
Oh, wow.
So imagine you're in a morning meeting, you're shuffling things around based on the latest arrivals, the
Right.
latest emergencies, and bam, everyone's in the loop.
It's like having a synchronized dance routine for your entire service team. But instead of choreography, it's boat repairs.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, QuickBooks Time, it isn't specifically built for marinas.
Okay.
It doesn't have that inherent understanding of work orders or the specific nuances of a boat repair job.
So while it excels at scheduling and communication, it might lack some of the industry-specific context
Yeah,
that Prolifik offers.
that's an important point.
Okay.
Now let's dive into a crucial aspect of running a profitable marina.
Okay, hit me.
Tracking billable versus quoted time.
Oh, that's a big one.
This is all about measuring efficiency and ensuring you're not losing money on jobs.
Yeah, every minute counts, especially when you're dealing with tight margins. So how do these systems help you keep a close eye on those billable hours?
This is where Prolifik HMS really shines.
Okay.
It's designed to track the entire workflow,
Okay.
from that initial estimate to the final invoice.
Wow, the whole thing.
You can compare your estimated hours to the actual hours logged,
Okay.
giving you a crystal clear picture of your team's efficiency and whether your quotes are on target.
So let's say I've got a job that, consistently goes over budget.
Yep.
Prolifik would help me kind of pinpoint the problem.
Yeah.
Whether it's, a technician consistently taking longer than expected,
Right.
maybe an inaccurate estimate,
Could be.
or something else entirely.
It helps you pinpoint that.
Okay.
And this kind of data can be incredibly powerful. In one of our sources, we saw a case study where a marina was able to increase its profit margin by 15%.
15%.
15% simply by identifying and addressing those jobs that were consistently losing money.
Wow, 15%. That's huge.
It is significant.
Okay, I'm already sold on this feature, but
Yeah.
how does QuickBooks Time handle this? I mean, it's a time tracking powerhouse, but can it really help me analyze efficiency against my quotes?
It can certainly be done,
Okay.
especially if you leverage its project features or opt for the Elite plan, which allows you to set up projects with estimated hours
Okay.
and monitor progress in real time.
Okay.
But it's not quite as seamless as with Prolifik. You're essentially using the time tracking data to manually compare against your initial quotes.
So it requires a bit more work on the manager's part,
A little bit, yeah,
but it's still possible to extract those valuable insights.
precisely.
Okay.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that can make or break a software implementation.
Oh, okay. What's that?
User experience.
Oh, that's a big one.
How easy are these systems to learn and adopt?
Yeah, you could have the most feature-packed software in the world, but if it's too complicated to use,
It's useless.
it's going to end up, gathering dust on a virtual shelf.
You're absolutely right, and this is where we see another key difference.
Okay.
Prolifik HMS, with all its bells and whistles,
Yeah.
it can be a bit daunting to use.
I can already see the eye rolls from the back of the workshop.
Right.
Another new software to learn.
Exactly.
Uh,
You'll likely need to invest in some dedicated training to get your team up to speed.
right.
The workflow logic makes sense, but it's a powerful system, and that means there's a learning curve.
So for a busy marina owner who's already juggling a million things,
Right.
that's something to consider.
Definitely.
QuickBooks Time, on the other hand, I mean, it's known for its user-friendliness, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
QuickBooks Time is designed to be intuitive, easy to pick up.
Oh.
Most technicians and managers can figure it out with minimal training, which means you can start seeing results quickly.
Okay, so QuickBooks Time might score some early wins just by being easy to implement.
Right.
But what about when you've got a fluctuating workforce,
Yeah.
especially with, seasonal staff? How do these systems handle those changes?
That's a great question. Prolifik HMS typically operates on a fixed price model.
Okay.
So you pay for the system,
Mm-hmm.
and you can add as many users as you need,
Okay.
which is great for cost effectiveness, especially if you have a lot of seasonal workers coming and going.
But wouldn't onboarding and training all those new users every season be a bit of a headache?
It can be. You're essentially bringing on a new crew and having to teach them how to operate the chip systems every few months.
Right. Right.
QuickBooks Time handles this differently. It's cloud-based,
Okay.
uses a per-user monthly billing model.
So you can easily add and remove users as your needs change.
That's right.
And you're only paying for the active accounts.
Exactly.
That's a nice perk.
It is. It gives you more flexibility and control over your costs.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
But we have.
We've talked about mobile accessibility, real-time tracking, scheduling flexibility, billable hours, user experience, and scalability.
A lot.
It's clear that both Prolifik HMS and QuickBooks Time have their strengths and weaknesses.
For sure.
But before we, jump into which system might be right for you, I want to take a moment to discuss some best practices
Okay.
that can truly elevate your marina's service and refinishing operations.
I love that idea. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to make your service department a well-oiled machine.
Exactly, because after all, even the best software won't solve everything if you don't have, solid processes in place.
That's right. One of the most critical best practices is effective triage and job prioritization.
Okay.
Think of it like a well-run emergency room
Okay.
for boats.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
When a boat arrives for service,
Yeah.
don't let it sit there collecting barnacles.
Okay. All
The,
right.
the key is to perform an immediate assessment,
Gotcha.
a triage to identify the issues, understand the scope of work, and order any necessary parts right away.
So no more discovering a missing part halfway through a repair and having to tell the customer,
Yeah.
sorry, your boat's going to be delayed.
Exactly. This upfront triage process not only saves you time
Right.
and potential headaches down the road,
Yeah.
but it allows you to set realistic expectations with the customer from the start.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of setting expectations,
Yeah.
how does this triage process tie into scheduling and prioritizing jobs?
That's a great question. Marina life, it's unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
So you need a system that allows you to constantly reprioritize jobs based on urgency, parts availability, and technician expertise.
So instead of working through a static list, you're constantly adjusting and adapting
Exactly.
to the ever-changing
Yeah, the ever-changing tide.
tide of repairs.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
This might involve daily huddles with your team to assess priorities, or even using a visual system like a color-coded work order board where you can see at a glance which jobs need immediate attention.
Right.
And this is where the right software can really make a difference.
Okay, I'm starting to see how the software and the best practices kind of intertwine.
They do.
But before we get too deep into that, I think we need to take a break and come back fresh to tackle the next part of this discussion.
Sounds like a plan. We'll be back soon to dive deeper into those best practices and how you can leverage the power of Prolifik HMS and QuickBooks Time to implement them effectively.
All right, sounds good. Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were getting into some of those, best practices for managing your marina's service department.
Right, and we were just talking about the importance of triage and dynamic scheduling to, keep things running smoothly.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by this idea of treating the service department like an emergency room for boats.
I like it.
It makes so much sense. But once we've triaged a boat and slotted it into the schedule,
Yeah.
how do we make sure that things stay on track
Yeah.
and that we're not, losing time or money on those jobs?
Well, that's where meticulous time tracking comes in. And,
Yeah.
and it's not just about knowing, how many hours your technicians worked in a day.
Right.
It's about understanding how they spent those hours
Okay.
and why.
Okay. I'm sensing another knowledge bomb incoming.
Here it is, all right. Track time per task,
Oh.
not just per day.
Okay.
So instead of a technician simply logging 8 hours at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they should be logging, 3 hours on engine repair for boat A, 2 hours on fiberglass work for boat B, and so on.
Right.
That granular data is pure gold.
It's like having a detailed map. instead of just a general idea of where you're going. You
Exactly.
can see all the twists and turns and detours and shortcuts and all that.
You got it. This level of detail allows you to analyze which tasks are taking the most time,
Uh-huh.
identify bottlenecks in your workflow, figure out where those inefficiencies are hiding.
Okay.
Maybe you discover that, like, prepping a hole for painting
Yeah.
consistently takes longer than estimated.
Oh, it's good to know.
Right. Valuable information.
Yeah.
You can then adjust your quotes, allocate more time for that task, maybe provide better tools or training,
Right.
or even rethink the entire process.
It's all about using data to, make informed decisions.
Absolutely. And once you're tracking time at this level of detail, you can start measuring efficiency
Yeah.
and setting goals for your team.
Okay.
Imagine being able to calculate, like, each technician's efficiency by comparing their actual hours spent on a task
Yeah.
to the billable or standard hours for that task.
That sounds incredibly useful, but how do you actually, use this information? Do you just post a big leaderboard in the break room and let the competition begin?
A little friendly competition never hurts.
Right.
But the real power lies in using this data as a coaching tool.
Okay.
Review those time logs with your technicians, discuss any discrepancies,
Yeah.
celebrate successes,
Yeah.
identify areas for improvement.
It's not about micromanaging or, pointing fingers.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of accountability
Absolutely.
and continuous improvement.
For sure. And that benefits everyone, the marina, the
Yeah.
technicians, and ultimately the customers.
The customers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not forget about the customer experience. Imagine being able to give your customers proactive updates about the progress of their repairs.
So instead of them having to, call and chase you down,
Right.
you're keeping them informed every step of the way.
Right. Exactly. And this is where that real-time data we talked about earlier comes into play.
Okay.
Whether you're using Prolifik HMS or Quickbooks Time,
Mm-hmm.
both systems can help you leverage that real-time data to, optimize your workflow,
Yeah.
keep your customers happy.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Good.
But let's get, specific.
Right.
How can we actually use these systems to, implement these best practices?
Well, let's start with Prolifik HMS.
Okay.
Its strength really lies in its, comprehensive nature
Okay.
because it's designed specifically for marinas.
Right.
It has built-in features that align with those best practices.
So walk me through it.
Okay.
A boat arrives at my marina for service. What's the first step?
So with Prolifik HMS, you would create a work order for that boat.
Okay.
And as part of the work order creation process,
Yeah.
you'd go through that initial triage assessment that we discussed.
Right.
So that means identifying the issues, outlining the scope of work, and checking if you have the necessary parts in inventory.
And because Prolifik has a built-in inventory management system,
That's right.
it can even automatically check stock levels and alert you if you need to order parts.
It can. That's pretty slick.
That's slick, and that's a key part of setting realistic expectations with the customer.
And
If you know a part needs to be ordered, you can tell the customer up front, hey, there might be a little bit of a delay.
Right. Transparency is key.
Transparency, big time. Okay, so once we've triaged the boat
Yeah.
and we've ordered any, necessary parts,
Mm-hmm.
how does Prolifik help with scheduling and prioritization?
So Prolifik has a scheduling module
Okay.
where you can assign technicians to specific jobs, you can set deadlines,
Uh-huh.
and track progress.
Okay.
And you can adjust the schedule as needed, which is essential in a dynamic environment like a marina.
And if, something comes up, let's say a technician gets sick or a job takes longer than expected, you can easily just adjust the schedule and see the ripple effect on other jobs.
Absolutely. It's like having a digital chessboard where you can move pieces around and anticipate the consequences of each move.
Ooh, I like that.
And as your technicians are working on those jobs, they can use Prolifik to log their time against each specific task.
That's where we get that granular time tracking data that we were talking about.
That's right.
And then Prolifik can use that data to generate reports.
Yep.
That show you, which jobs are profitable, which ones are losing money, and where you can make improvements.
Exactly. It's all about using that data to drive better decisions.
It is. Okay, now let's switch gears a little bit
Okay.
and look at how QuickBooks Time can be used to implement these same best practices,
Right.
even though it's not, a marina-specific software.
Right. QuickBooks Time is more of a point solution. It's focused on that time tracking
Right.
and scheduling.
So how do we make it work for us in a marina setting?
The key is to supplement QuickBooks Time with other tools or processes. that fill in the gaps.
Right.
So, for example, you might use a simple spreadsheet or a whiteboard to manage your work orders and track parts.
So you're essentially creating like a hybrid system
Yeah, hybrid approach.
that leverages the strengths of QuickBooks Time while acknowledging its limitations.
Exactly.
Right.
So let's walk through that same boat repair scenario.
Right.
A boat arrives for service.
Yep.
You need to perform that initial triage assessment.
Mm-hmm.
You might just jot down the issues, the scope of work, any parts needed on a simple work order form.
Gotcha.
And then when it comes to scheduling,
Yeah.
QuickBooks Time comes into play.
Okay.
You can use its intuitive drag-and-drop interface to schedule those technicians, set deadlines, send those notifications.
Right. And as your technicians are working on the job,
Yeah.
they can use the QuickBooks Time mobile app to clock in and out of specific tasks, just like we were talking about.
That's right.
So even though QuickBooks Time isn't specifically designed for marinas,
Mhm.
you can still get that detailed time tracking data. That's so valuable for analyzing, efficiency and profitability.
You got it. And here's a tip. Make sure your technicians are adding clear and concise notes to those time entries.
Okay.
This is especially important with QuickBooks Time,
Yeah.
since it doesn't have a dedicated work order module.
So those notes provide like context
Yes, context.
for the time spent and helps you really understand what was done on each job.
Exactly. It's like having a mini logbook for every task.
Right, right. And when it comes to customer communication,
Yeah.
you can use QuickBooks Time's reporting features
Mm-hmm.
to see how much time has been spent on a particular job.
Right.
And then, give them an update. Hey, this is where we stand.
Exactly.
So even with a point solution like QuickBooks Time,
Mm-hmm.
you can still implement those best practices of, transparency and proactive communication
You can.
that are so important for building trust and loyalty with your customer base.
Absolutely. The key is to be creative and find ways to work within the system's limitations.
You got it. It sounds like choosing the right software really comes down to understanding your specific needs and priorities, right?
But you nailed it. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, but having explored those best practices, let's dive into the pros and cons of each software.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. What are the key strengths and weaknesses of Prolifik HMS?
Okay, so Prolifik HMS is like that seasoned ship captain.
Okay,
It knows the ins and outs of the marina business.
gotcha.
Its biggest strength is that it's specifically designed for marinas,
Okay.
covering everything from slip rentals to service shop management.
So you're not trying to like shoehorn a generic system into a very, specific industry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And within the service department,
Yeah.
it really shines in its ability to handle estimates, work orders, scheduling, labor tracking, and inventory all in one integrated package.
So no more juggling multiple systems or like spreadsheets.
Right.
Everything's in one central hub.
That's right. And because Prolifik is built for marinas, it can handle those complexities of triage, dynamic scheduling, tracking billable hours, all the stuff we've been talking about.
It's designed to support those best practices right out of the box.
Right out of the box, but what about the downsides?
Yeah. What should like potential users be aware of?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, its mobile user experience could be better.
Yeah.
That lack of a dedicated mobile app might be a deal breaker for some technicians who are constantly on the move.
It's like trying to navigate a massive ship with a tiny outdated compass.
Exactly. And then there's the learning curve.
Okay.
Prolifik HMS is a powerful system,
Yeah.
but it takes time and effort to master all of its features.
Yeah.
You're going to need to invest in training and support for your team
Right.
to make sure they're using it effectively.
So while it's a great option for those who want like, full control
Yeah.
and integration,
Mm-hmm.
it might not be the best fit for those who prioritize, ease of use or need a quick solution.
Precisely. And then there's the upfront cost and the IT dependence.
Okay.
Prolifik HMS typically requires a significant one-time investment,
Right.
and you'll likely need a pretty robust IT infrastructure to support it.
So it's a bit like buying a beautiful classic wooden boat.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of love and upkeep.
Uh-huh.
But for the right owner,
It's worth it.
it's worth it.
Yeah. Now let's turn our attention to QuickBooks Time.
Great.
What are some of its standout strengths?
Well, I mean, we've already talked about its, exceptional mobile accessibility
That's right.
and real-time visibility.
It's like having a fleet of nimble speedboats sipping around,
I like it.
keeping you informed every step of the way. And its scheduling tool is fantastic. You can drag and drop assignments, make quick adjustments, notify technicians instantly.
It's ideal for that, like, dynamic marina environment.
It is.
You know, you're always in control, even when things get chaotic.
That's right. And if you're already using QuickBooks for accounting, the integration is seamless.
Oh, yeah.
Time tracking data flows directly into payroll and job costing.
You're saving a ton of time
You are.
and probably a lot of potential errors.
Absolutely.
All right, so QuickBooks Time scores big points for ease of use, mobile accessibility, and integration with, QuickBooks products.
Mm-hmm.
But what about its weaknesses? Where does it kind of fall short?
The most significant weakness is that it's not an all-in-one solution.
Okay.
QuickBooks Time excels at time tracking and
Yeah.
scheduling, but
Yeah.
it doesn't handle work orders, it doesn't handle parts or detailed job information.
Right. So you're essentially like piecing together a system
You are.
by combining QuickBooks Time with other tools or processes.
That's right.
And that can lead to data fragmentation, duplicate entry,
Yeah.
and things just slipping through the cracks if you're not careful.
It's like trying to sail a ship with a patchwork of sails and rigging.
Yeah.
It might work.
It might work.
That's not ideal.
It's not pretty.
And another weakness is that while QuickBooks Time allows you to add notes
Yeah.
to time entries,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't provide that comprehensive view of a work order like you get with Prolifik HMS.
So you're seeing the time spent, but you're missing the bigger picture of where that job stands in
Right.
the overall workflow.
Precisely.
Okay.
And then there's the reliance on the internet
Yeah,
and the cloud.
that's a big one.
While this is becoming less of an issue as internet access at marinas improves,
Right.
it's something to consider if you have, unreliable connectivity
Yeah.
or you prefer to keep your data stored locally.
So QuickBooks Time might not be the best fit for those who, value offline accessibility
Yeah.
or like data control.
That's right. And lastly, while QuickBooks Time is very affordable for small teams,
Yeah.
the cost can add up as your workforce grows,
Right.
especially if you have a lot of those seasonal employees.
Okay, so we've laid out the battlefield.
We have.
The strengths and weaknesses of each contender are, pretty clear.
Yeah.
But as I've kind of hinted at throughout this deep dive, sometimes the best solution isn't choosing one over the other,
Right.
but finding a way to combine them.
Exactly. A hybrid approach where you leverage the strengths of both Prolifik HMS and QuickBooks Time.
I love this idea.
It can be incredibly powerful.
It's like having a well-equipped flagship
Yeah.
supported by a fleet of nimble scout ships,
I like it.
all working together to ensure smooth sailing.
You get the comprehensive management capabilities of Prolifik HMS
Mm-hmm.
with the ease of use and real-time visibility
Right.
of QuickBooks Time.
Oh, this is getting me really excited about the possibilities.
Yeah.
But I imagine, like, choosing the right path,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, Prolifik QuickBooks Time
Mm-hmm.
or this hybrid approach,
Mm-hmm.
depends on a lot of factors.
It does. It comes down to understanding your specific needs, your priorities, your budget, and, your long-term vision for your marina.
Right.
But with all the knowledge we've covered today,
Yeah. You're well equipped to make the right call.
and remember, even if you ultimately decide to go with one system over the other,
Mm-hmm.
there are, valuable lessons to be learned from both.
There are.
Prolifik HMS shows us the power of integration,
Yes.
data-driven decision-making,
Mm-hmm.
and having a system that truly understands the nuances of the marina business.
That's right. And QuickBooks Time reminds us that user experience matters,
Yes, it does.
that mobile accessibility can be a game changer,
Absolutely.
and that sometimes simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Ooh, I like that one. Well, folks, I think we've covered just about everything we can about Prolifik HMS and QuickBooks Time.
I think so.
But before we sign off, I have to ask our expert,
Yeah.
what's that one, provocative thought you want to leave our listeners pondering
Okay.
as they embark on their own quest for the perfect marina management software?
I got one. Okay, so imagine this. You can not only track your technician's time, but also predict potential delays before they even happen. Whoa. Now that is what I call next level.
Right, think about using data to optimize your entire service workflow
Okay.
from start to finish.
Yeah.
You could see, which jobs tend to go over budget,
Right.
or you could identify technicians who might need additional training in certain areas.
That's like having a crystal ball for your marina.
It is.
You could proactively address issues before they even arise.
Exactly. And that's the power of truly harnessing the right software
Right.
and best practices. It's not just about, managing today's tasks,
Right.
but about using data to continuously improve and evolve your entire operation.
Okay, I am officially mind blown.
Good.
I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today.
I think so too.
Any final words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
Just this. Choosing the right marina management software is a huge decision.
It is.
But don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Right.
Do your research.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, trust your gut.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right.
Well, folks, that's a wrap on our deep dive into Prolifik HMS and Quickbooks Time.
It was a good one.
It was a good one. I hope you found this exploration as valuable as we did.
As we did.
And remember, the best choice for your marina depends on your unique needs
Yeah,
and priorities.
absolutely.
But armed with the knowledge we've shared today, you're well on your way to smoother sailing and happier customers.
For sure.
Until next time, fair winds and following seas.
See you later.